Hello, everyone, and welcome back to another week of our Cybersecurity Executive Brief. I am Corey Wolf, Director of Offensive Security at Risk 360. Today is Wednesday, September 4th, which means Monday was Labor Day, which means summer is officially over. I hope you had a great summer. We have what they refer to as the Burr months. We are now in them in September, of course. Winter's coming up, holiday season's coming up. I hope everyone had a great summer and is looking forward to the upcoming holiday season. Of course, I was not here last week. I took some time off, but we are back for another week of our executive brief. And one that I wanted to start with is something that I first initially saw maybe a week after DEF CON, so probably 2 or 3 weeks ago, where an SQL injection vulnerability was found in a piece of software known as FlyCASS. So this software, if you've ever traveled and been through a TSA checkpoint, you will see that there are known crew member areas where pilots, flight attendants, and known crew members can go through security kind of on their own. In some cases, bypass security. And a lot of these authorizations are managed through software such as FlyCASS. Unfortunately, two researchers, Ian Carroll and Sam Curry, found an SQL injection vulnerability in this system. So it allowed them to create a user and then using the SQL injection vulnerability, provide authorization for this user to essentially bypass security. So, so this pretty serious issue. And, I guess we're going back to 1998, 2005, 2009, whatever. We thought SQL injection vulnerabilities were dead. They are not. They are still here. In fact, if we looked at FlyCASS's just homepage here, this looks pretty ancient, right? But they did find an SQL injection vulnerability in the login page. So they were able to simply do an SQL injection string into the login page and gain access. So not a big surprise that they're using outdated software or legacy software, I guess we'll say. But I think the big thing here was really the response and the process that Ian and Sam had to go through when it came to disclosure of this vulnerability. Supposedly, not the greatest reception from the Department of Homeland Security. There was a little bit of back and forth here. But ultimately, the Department of Homeland Security, let's see, what do they say? The DHS acknowledged the issue, saying they were taking this very seriously. FlyCASS was subsequently disabled from participating in KCM and CAS programs. The CAS program is the Cockpit, I think, authorization. Yep, Cockpit Access Security System authorizations. But they acknowledged it, and they said that it was disabled from participating in KCM and CAS programs, and the vulnerability has since been addressed. If you look at the next paragraph, however, the researchers faced challenges in coordinating the disclosure process. Despite their efforts, the TSA press office issued a statement downplaying the severity of the vulnerability, inaccurately claiming that the flaw cannot be used to bypass KCM checkpoints, to which the researchers countered this claim and pointed out that TSA personnel can manually enter employee IDs, rendering the TSA's vetting process ineffective in some instances. So, yes, we know that there is legacy software out there. We do know that there are vulnerabilities in them. I think one of the big reasons why this story, it's a hot topic. If you say, hey, SQL injection vulnerability in airline security software, of course that's going to raise some eyebrows. But I think the bigger issue here is really how the DHS and the TSA kind of work through the disclosure process, and it's a big one. So it's apparently been addressed for real this time, but something that I wanted to bring up and at least talk about because it has been up in the news quite a bit over the last 2 or 3 weeks, and so that's what happened there. Essentially, I believe they have at this point completed a fix for this issue. So SQL injection vulnerability to bypass airport security, that's a serious thing. So sticking with the government, actually, so this one is from the 20th of August, right? Yep. Again, we weren't here last week, but something that I did want to bring up, because you're starting to see the SEC do this more and more, where they're filing charges against specific organizations that may or may not have had lax security practices. This is another example of that. So the SEC charges a transfer agent, Equinity Trust Company Co. with failing to protect client funds against cyber intrusions. So what happened here is in 2022, here we go. So in 2022, an unknown threat actor hijacked a pre-existing email chain between what was then, they used to be called American Stock Transfer, and a US-based public issuer client. So this basically is a business email compromise. Someone's email on that email chain was compromised in some way. The threat actors went in. This is classic. This is classic business email compromise, to where they gain access to an email and they just say, they email HR and say, hey, this is my new bank account information. Or they email a client of the business and say, hey, this is where you should start to send your payments. So they'll email accounts payable at a client company, say, this is where you need to send your payments now, right? Classic business email compromise. It happened to them in September 2022, to where ultimately they instructed American Stock to issue millions of new shares, liquidate them, and then send the proceeds to an overseas bank. So they did it, and ultimately the threat actors got $4.78 million to bank accounts located in Hong Kong. Apparently, American Stock Transfer, aka Equinity, was able to recover approximately $1 million of that. But then again, in September of 2023, in an unrelated incident, apparently, they essentially, the threat actors had a list of social security numbers, and they were able to go to American Stock Transfer and create accounts, right? So create fake accounts that were automatically linked to real client accounts, right? So they were able to, through one way or another, most likely a web portal, they were able to create accounts, say, this is my social security number. American Stock Transfer associated that social security number with an account, didn't do any verification at all, apparently. And the threat actors were able to gain access to those American Stock Transfer accounts through creating, fake web accounts using a compromised social security number. Threat actors did this quite a bit. Looks like they were able to gain about 1.9 million, of which American Stock Transfer was able to recover approximately 1.6 million. So this is I think we're all pretty aware of this. Maybe we are, maybe we aren't, but the SEC is starting to go more and more after organizations that fail to uphold solid cybersecurity principles. And it's something I wanted to call out, that I would have done it last week, but again, we weren't here. But this is an increasing trend. Of course, there's a SolarWinds one. There's a new 8K, not new anymore, but there's the 8K disclosure requirements. And apparently the SEC is really starting to be serious about cybersecurity in public companies and the organizations around, the stock markets. So, yeah, SEC continues to go after organizations based on lax security practices. Last one I want to talk about this week is a joint advisory from CISA, the FBI, and the Department of Defense Cyber Crime Center. So in this case, they're talking about Iran-based cyber actors enabling ransomware attacks on U.S. organizations. What does this mean? Well, they have intel, and clearly, if FBI, if there's a joint announcement like this, especially with CISA, like if they put out an announcement, they usually only do that if they have really solid evidence, right? Now they might put guidance in a tweet or somewhere else, but if they put out like an official advisory, they really have evidence to whatever they're announcing. In this case, they're talking through how the FBI and various other organizations had been tracking some threat actors associated with the government of Iran. So they've basically been tracking these threat actors. And as you can see here, the FBI further assesses these Iran-based cyber actors are associated with the government of Iran and separate from the ransomware activity, conduct computer network exploitation activity in support of the GOI. So they're saying that these threat actors have specifically been targeting US-based organizations. They mentioned some other countries, but these threat actors have been specifically going after US-based organizations. And they call this out specifically separate from the ransomware activity. So if you know anything about, I guess, kind of how the threat actor ecosystem operates, and we actually did a video on this not too long ago, myself and Christian Hyatt, our CEO. If you think about the ecosystem, there's ransomware groups, right? And they gain access to networks one way or another. But one thing that they can do, and that anyone can do really, is they can buy access from what's known as an initial access broker. So these are people, the initial access brokers are the people who are compromising the networks, who are gaining the access. And typically that's all they do, right? That's what they spend their time doing. They just want to gain access and then maintain persistence in some way or another, and then sell that access, right? These are like the real deal people, right? That are doing this stuff. These are very technically savvy people who know what they're doing and are able to gain access to, everything from mom and pop shops to government agencies, and they sell that access. So what they're saying in this report is that the threat actors from the government of Iran are basically acting as initial access brokers and providing that access to ransomware activity. So they're essentially saying that Iran and Russia are working together to target U.S. organizations. Iran gaining the threat actors related to Iran are gaining the initial access, handing it off to the ransomware operators, who then go ahead and perform ransomware operations on that network. So if CISA released this report, they have pretty good evidence that it's happening. And so it's just something that we should look out for and be vigilant about. Really, when it comes to ransomware operations, most of the time they're just getting low-hanging fruit. There's some organization didn't patch something or whatever it might be. But there are times where they do buy access from initial access brokers, and there are times when they just have partners. So if you think about MGM was Scattered Spider and ALPHV. So Scattered Spider were the ones that focused on the access. Scattered Spider is the ones that did the social engineering to gain access to the MGM networks. They didn't do the ransomware, right? They gained access, they passed it off to ALPHV, who did the ransomware, and Scattered Spider got their cut. And so that's partly how the threat actor ecosystem works. There's specialties just like anything else. Big uptick from Iranian-based threat actors working with Russian-based ransomware groups to target and go after US-based organizations. So that's it for this week, Wednesday, September 4th. I hope this was helpful. I hope you're recovering after a long weekend and being back at work. I hope you have a great rest of your week, and we'll see you here next week. Speak soon.